Let me ask you something direct. When did you last wake up and feel genuinely rested? Not just conscious, not just functional enough to reach for the coffee, actually rested, alert from the first moment, ready for the day before it even began. If you have to think back further than you would like to admit, I need you to keep reading, because what I am about to share is not the standard advice about sleep hygiene or cutting screen time. It goes deeper than that. It explains a specific biological mechanism that breaks down in men over 60, why that breakdown produces the exact symptoms you are experiencing, and how a single overlooked mineral, one that the majority of men in your age group are significantly deficient in, may be the primary reason your nights stopped restoring you. I am Dr. John Carter. I have spent years in clinical practice as a men's health physician, sitting across from men in their 60s, 70s, and 80s who came in describing the same constellation of symptoms. Persistent fatigue that sleep does not resolve, erections that are weaker than they used to be, or that have largely stopped occurring in the morning, energy that feels like it is slowly draining away with no clear cause, libido that has faded so gradually that it was hard to notice exactly when it went. And almost every one of those men told me the same thing when I asked them how long this had been going on. They said they assumed it was just getting older. I stopped them at that point every time, because that explanation, while it feels true, is incomplete in a way that costs men years of vitality they did not have to surrender. Here is what is actually happening. The nighttime hours are not simply a passive period of unconsciousness. They are the most biologically active restorative window your body has, and everything you care about most, your energy, your sexual function, your mood, your physical and mental capacity, depends on whether that window is doing its job properly. During deep sleep, testosterone production peaks. This is not a minor hormonal fluctuation. The majority of your daily testosterone output occurs during the nighttime hours. If your sleep is fragmented, shallow, or biochemically disrupted, your testosterone profile the following day reflects that disruption directly. During deep sleep, the blood vessels that supply the erectile tissue of the penis undergo a process of dilation and regeneration. This is why healthy morning erections are not simply a sign of youthful hormones. They are a biological indicator that your vascular and neurological systems completed their overnight repair cycle successfully. When those erections diminish or disappear, the change is not primarily hormonal. It is vascular and neurological. And it starts with what is happening or not happening during sleep. During deep sleep, your prostate undergoes its own recovery process, with inflammation calming and tissue repair occurring. Chronic poor sleep is directly associated with elevated prostatic inflammation and worsened urinary symptoms. And during deep sleep, the mitochondria inside every cell in your body, the organelles responsible for generating cellular energy, complete their own recharging cycle. Mitochondrial function during the day is only as good as the restoration that occurred the night before. If the sleep system is not working, all of those downstream benefits collapse simultaneously. And the first places that collapse becomes visible are your energy, your sexual function, and your sense of vitality. The question is why the sleep system fails, and the answer, for a remarkably high proportion of men over 60, comes down to a single nutrient deficiency that is almost never identified or addressed. That nutrient is magnesium. I am going to walk you through 4 critical mistakes men make when it comes to magnesium. What I want you to understand is that these are not theoretical errors. They are patterns I see constantly in clinical practice, and each one explains why so many men have tried magnesium supplements before, concluded they did not work, and moved on without ever experiencing the genuine benefit this mineral can provide when used correctly. Mistake number 1: not recognizing that you are deficient in the first place. Magnesium is the 4th most abundant mineral in the human body and is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions. It is essential to cardiovascular function, muscular contraction and relaxation, neurological regulation, hormonal production, protein synthesis, and energy metabolism at the cellular level. It is also the mineral that the majority of adults over 60 are not getting enough of. The reasons for this are multiple and compound over time. Dietary magnesium intake tends to decline with age as appetites change and food variety narrows. The gastrointestinal tract becomes less efficient at absorbing magnesium from food as the digestive system ages. Medications commonly prescribed to older adults, including proton pump inhibitors for acid reflux, diuretics for blood pressure management, and certain diabetes medications, all reduce magnesium absorption or accelerate its excretion. And chronic stress, which elevates cortisol, directly depletes magnesium reserves. The result is that a large proportion of men over 60 are operating in a state of chronic mild to moderate magnesium deficiency, without any acute symptoms that would make the deficiency obvious, but with a broad range of consequences that they have accepted as inevitable features of aging. In the nervous system, magnesium acts as the primary regulatory brake. It is the mineral that tells your nervous system it is safe to reduce its activation level. Without adequate magnesium, the nervous system remains in a state of chronic low-level activation, a mild but persistent state of alert. You may fall asleep because you are physically exhausted, but the quality of that sleep, the depth, the duration of restorative slow-wave phases, the hormonal and vascular repair activity that should be occurring is profoundly compromised. The outward experience of this is waking up feeling like you barely slept, regardless of how many hours you spent in bed. It is the heaviness, the irritability, the mental fog that sits over the first hours of every morning. It is the sense that your body did not actually recover overnight even though it had the time to do so. And at the vascular level, magnesium deficiency directly affects erectile function. Magnesium is required for the relaxation of smooth muscle in the walls of blood vessels. Without adequate magnesium, vascular tone is elevated, vessels do not dilate as fully as they should, and the blood flow required for strong erections is compromised at the fundamental level of the vessel wall's ability to relax. This is not a testosterone problem. It is a vascular problem driven by a mineral deficiency. Mistake number 2, choosing the wrong form of magnesium. This is where the majority of men who have attempted magnesium supplementation before have been let down, not by the mineral itself, but by the specific compound they took. Walk into any pharmacy and the most prominently displayed and least expensive magnesium product on the shelf is almost certainly magnesium oxide. It is the form used in most budget supplements precisely because it is cheap to manufacture. It is also the form with the lowest bioavailability of any commonly available magnesium compound, meaning the smallest proportion of what you swallow actually enters your bloodstream and reaches the tissues that need it. The majority of a magnesium oxide dose passes through the gastrointestinal tract without being absorbed, which is why the most consistent effect people notice from it is gastrointestinal discomfort or loose stools, not improved sleep or restored energy. For men over 60 seeking the specific benefits we are discussing, there are 2 forms that are supported by the evidence and that I use in clinical recommendations. The first is magnesium glycinate. In this compound, magnesium is bound to glycine, an amino acid with its own calming properties in the nervous system. This combination produces significantly higher bioavailability than oxide forms and has a particular affinity for the tissues of the nervous system and the vascular smooth muscle. Magnesium glycinate works directly on the parasympathetic nervous system, the system responsible for the rest, relaxation, and recovery state. It promotes muscle relaxation throughout the body, supports vascular dilation, and facilitates the transition into deeper sleep stages. The concurrent vascular relaxation effect supports improved erectile function by allowing the penile blood vessels to dilate more fully during arousal. The second is magnesium threonate, sometimes written as magnesium L-threonate. This form is unique because its chemical structure allows it to cross the blood-brain barrier, the protective membrane that limits what substances can enter the brain from the bloodstream. Most forms of magnesium do not cross this barrier effectively, which means their neurological benefits are limited. Magnesium threonate, by crossing into the brain directly, can reduce the racing or intrusive thoughts that prevent sleep onset, calm the neurological hyperactivation that prevents deep sleep from occurring, and support cognitive clarity and memory function during waking hours. For men whose sleep disruption is characterized primarily by inability to quiet a busy mind at night, magnesium threonate is particularly relevant. Neither of these forms will cause the gastrointestinal disruption associated with magnesium oxide. They are absorbed efficiently and delivered to the tissues that require them. Mistake number 3, taking magnesium at the wrong time of day. The therapeutic effect of magnesium for sleep and recovery is time-dependent. Understanding why makes the correct timing obvious. Magnesium's primary mechanism in this context is nervous system calming. It shifts the neurological balance toward the parasympathetic state of rest and restoration. That is exactly the shift you want to facilitate as you approach sleep. It is the opposite of what you want in the morning or the early afternoon, when alertness, focus, and physical and cognitive performance are the priority. Men who take magnesium in the morning frequently report feeling unusually sluggish or mentally slow through the first part of the day. This is not a side effect of the mineral. It is the predictable consequence of timing a calming intervention during hours when you need activation, and it means they are not receiving any of the nighttime recovery benefits they were seeking. The correct timing for sleep and recovery purposes is 30 to 60 minutes before your intended bedtime. At that point, the calming effect on the nervous system is precisely aligned with what your biology is trying to accomplish. You are giving your nervous system a physiological signal that preparation for rest and recovery is appropriate. Pair the supplementation with a brief, intentional wind-down. Warm water or a calming herbal tea. Reduced lighting. Removal of screens from your immediate environment. These environmental cues reinforce the neurological signal that magnesium is initiating and create a consistent bedtime routine that your nervous system begins to recognize and respond to over time. Consistency in this routine is not a minor detail. It is a significant part of what produces results. Biological adaptation occurs through repetition. The more consistently you pair the environmental cues with the mineral, the more reliably your nervous system begins its shift toward the recovery state at that time. Mistake number 4, expecting results too quickly and stopping before the cumulative benefit has fully developed. This is the mistake that causes more men to conclude that magnesium supplementation does not work than any other single factor. And it is entirely a consequence of misaligned expectations. Magnesium is not a sedative. It does not produce unconsciousness on the first night or manufacture erections on demand. It is a mineral that is correcting a chronic deficiency. The benefit it provides is cumulative. It builds progressively as your tissues restore their magnesium status to adequate levels and as your nervous system recalibrates to the new baseline. Most men who are consistent with correct form, correct timing, and appropriate dosage begin noticing changes in the first few nights. The falling asleep process becomes somewhat easier. There is a perceptible quality of deeper physical relaxation as they lie down. Morning wakings feel slightly less abrupt. By the end of the first week of consistent use, the changes become more distinct. Morning energy is more reliable. The heavy, foggy quality of the first hour of the day begins to lift. Men who have been experiencing frequent nighttime bathroom trips, often a consequence of nervous system overactivation rather than genuinely full bladder, find that those trips decrease in frequency. And morning erections, absent for months or years in some cases, begin returning for some men during this window. After 2 to 3 weeks of consistent daily use, the full baseline of benefit becomes accessible. Sleep architecture improves, meaning a greater proportion of the night is spent in the deep restorative sleep stages. Mood stability through the day improves as a downstream consequence. Cognitive clarity sharpens. Libido begins to recover as testosterone production and vascular function, both supported by improved sleep and adequate magnesium, normalize. The key word throughout all of this is consistency. Missing nights disrupts the cumulative build. The benefit is not a stock you can draw from indefinitely after a brief loading period. It requires ongoing daily maintenance to sustain the corrected magnesium status. Now let me give you the practical framework. Choose the right form. For sleep and vascular support, magnesium glycinate. For sleep with significant cognitive overlay, racing thoughts, or nighttime anxiety, magnesium threonate. Both if you want to address both dimensions simultaneously. Start with a conservative dose. For magnesium glycinate, 200 milligrams approximately 45 minutes before bed is an appropriate starting point. For magnesium threonate, 1 gram in the evening is the standard dose used in the research. These can be adjusted modestly upward after 2 weeks if the initial dose has been well tolerated and the desired benefit is not yet fully expressed. Build a consistent bedtime environment. Lowered lighting 30 to 40 minutes before bed. No screen engagement for at least 30 minutes before sleep. Magnesium taken with warm water. A brief period of light physical relaxation, gentle stretching, or slow breathing to complement the neurological calming that magnesium initiates. This combination consistently outperforms the supplement used in isolation because you are reinforcing the same biological signal through multiple channels simultaneously. Consider the ZMA combination. Zinc, magnesium, and vitamin B6 taken together in the evening have a compounding effect on testosterone production, muscle recovery, and sexual function that exceeds the benefit of any single component. The combination is widely available, well-studied, and particularly relevant for men over 60 whose testosterone levels have been declining and whose recovery capacity has diminished. I want to close with something I say to every patient who sits across from me, convinced that what they are experiencing is simply the unavoidable trajectory of growing older. Deficiency symptoms are not the same as aging symptoms. That distinction matters enormously. Aging is real. Some biological changes are genuinely irreversible and require adaptation rather than correction. But fatigue driven by magnesium deficiency is not aging. Fragmented sleep driven by a nervous system that lacks the mineral it needs to downregulate is not aging. Weakened erections driven by vascular smooth muscle that cannot relax fully due to insufficient magnesium is not aging. These are correctable. They are correctable starting tonight. I have worked with men in their late 70s and early 80s who had accepted total loss of morning erections, chronic fatigue, and fragmented sleep as permanent features of their remaining years. And I have seen those same men, after several weeks of consistent, correct supplementation and the sleep quality improvements that followed, describe a quality of morning energy and physical vitality they had not experienced in years. This is not about pursuing youth or pretending that 65 is 30. It is about ensuring that the years you have are lived with the energy, the clarity, the physical capacity, and the intimate connection that define a life being fully inhabited rather than gradually managed. Your body still has the biological machinery to regenerate overnight, to produce adequate testosterone, to support strong vascular function, and to deliver the energy and vitality you need. It simply needs the right inputs to do so. Give it magnesium, give it consistency, give it the correct form at the correct time, and give it enough nights in a row to demonstrate what it is genuinely capable of. Then tell me what changed. This is Dr. John Carter. I will see you in the next one.